Testing. Hello, testing, 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 testing. Hello, testing, testing. Hello, testing, testing. One, two, testing, testing. Testing, testing. One, two, three. Testing.
Everyone hear me?
Hello. Hi, everyone. Good evening. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Penang Institute. We are 10 seconds to 8. I think it's okay for us to start, right? Since we're at 8 o'clock, we would like this talk to start sharp at 8. So I'm not going to take very long time. Thanks again for everyone to be here tonight. Even though it's in the evening, you're all here. Thank you so much. Give yourself a clap. Right. So today we have here an engineer by training, a banker by profession, but an avid maps collector. We have Julian. He'll be sharing with you his wonderful collection and the things that he learned from his collection. And I'm not going to take more time from him. I'm going to step off my stage and you're going to hear from him. The Straits of Malacca, focusing on Penang.
Thank you for the kind introduction. I hope you can hear me. Those at the back who cannot hear me, please wave your hands, right? I wanted to start sharp at 8. Let me, this is the talk on the Straits of Malacca. If you are not here for this talk, you're in the wrong room. Yeah, this is elsewhere. Okay, let's move on. So I'm going to be talking about the Straits of Malacca using maps and sea charts. And here are all my details. So hopefully this engagement is the start. It's not the end. You can use all your various social media, Instagram, WhatsApp, email to get hold of me. Any question, no matter how basic, I appreciate. It provokes thinking. So, please. So why the Straits of Malacca? Well, we are in the Straits of Malacca. We're in Penang. Malaysia is bordered by the Straits of Malacca. It's ultimately the relevant conversation. We had the geographic good luck because we are halfway between two great population bases, India and China. And not just being halfway in between, we were connected by the monsoons. So it brought us in the age of sail. And that maritime trade, yes, some people went overland. A lot of people went by ships. Didn't just start at the age of exploration with the Portuguese and the Dutch. It goes back 2,000 plus years. And likely as technology increases, more research is done, we'll push that further. And that there was obviously cultural exchange. An example, the Romans 2,000 years ago, the elite used silk. The silk came from China. Pepper. When the Egyptians buried their dead, they put peppercorns in the nose. And coins, you find Roman coins, the single biggest collection of Roman coins outside of Europe is in India. Now, a bit about myself, we spent a little bit only. I collect antique maps and sea charts. That's my interest. I don't golf, I don't drink, I don't stay up late. This is what I do. I am obsessed, of course. When you're young and you collect everything, you're naive. You pay tuition fees to learn. Not being very smart, I paid a lot of tuition fees. It took a lot of time. But now I just focus on Straits of Malacca, Straits in Singapore, where I have some competence. So I do speak to institutions all around the world, in the US, Harvard, Leiden, in Holland, Singapore, obviously, the library, the museum, the various institutions, Hong Kong, increasingly China. Now, Penang, I started speaking during COVID, like all of us, we were stuck at home. So I did the first Zoom talk at Cambridge University. And Zoom is tough. You can't interact with people. You don't see your friends. You don't see new faces. If people are playing with their phone at the back, then, it's not exciting enough, right? That's a hint to you, my friend. Don't play your phone. But so I started talking about the Straits of Malacca. And I've given private talks in Singapore, which is one end of the barbell. Now, the northern part in Penang is the next logical place. And I have a Penang link. My father comes from Bukit Matajam. My paternal uncles all went to Stowell, went to high school. As a small boy, I remember, as a small boy, I remember coming in the 80s before the bridge was built, the first bridge I'm referring to, so the ferry. It was a phenomenal experience as a small kid. You used to get out of the car, go right to the front. I like Penang a lot. Even now, I like Penang a lot. There are lots of charming streets to walk around. Of course, disappearing. Hopefully that gets halted. And thank you for coming. It's such a thrill to see so many. You're the single largest audience I have spoken to. So thank you for coming. Now I need to give the thank you. So I thanked you. I'd like to thank the organizers for your phenomenal facilities and location. And I wore my matching red in it without knowing. I have to pay kudos to some of the people. So Singapore, the archives are very good. The museum have a lot of stuff. The library in Spain, Australia, and some of the map dealers that I have used. So from someone in the audience, I won't point out to him, but you can probably figure him out. He gave me a quote a few days before I finalized my presentation, and this quote just stuck with me. I won't read it to you, but some of us are gifted being able to visualize 2D onto 3D, but others are not like me. And I thought this quote by Logan is really brings out the beauty of maps in that you get to benchmark. What essentially is jumbled, the map on 2D can present it in an easy way. Let me move on. I'm obviously biased. So I'm going to talk about 20 English, Dutch, French, Italian sea charts, starting from the 1530s, and mostly English and Dutch, simply because of recency. They are available, right? The Portuguese charts are impossible to get. They were destroyed. There was a big fire in Lisbon in 17-something. And I tend to focus on sea charts, and really we are a maritime nation, right? We're a peninsula surrounded by sea. People use sail to go up and down the Straits of Malacca. So I like sea charts. And sea charts were used, they were updated, and they were replaced. And there was high attrition for usage at sea. So they're very rare. Now, I try to do the rojak lah. For those of you in Penang, you know what I mean. The theory of everything, I call it. I put everything into this: history, age of exploration, a bit of the trade, how that manifested cultural exchange. And then, again, talk about the British, the East India Company, and again, the Barbel, Penang, 1786, Singapore, 1819. Now, unlike some of you, who are world-class in your field and renowned academics. I won't name names, I'm deeply embarrassed, but you know who I'm referring to, mostly in the first row. Okay? They are the Tiger Woods, the Michael Jordan of the world here, and we are so fortunate to have them in Penang. I'm lost for words, which doesn't happen very often. I'm not an academic. I'm interested, I'm passionate, I am curious, and I'm very fortunate to know some of these people as friends. So I WhatsApp them. They're very kind to reply back, explain things to me, tolerate my stupidity. Now, limits of technology. The maps really you need to see. And the screen is not the best way. But hopefully it whet your appetite. I can send you a copy. I can send you to the links. I can teach you how to handle some of the archives, which are not easy. So let's move on. Let's look at some. The Straits of Malacca didn't start with Francis Light, 1786. It didn't start with the Portuguese, 1511. And you're so fortunate here. You stand outside the ENO and you look outside, you see Gunung Jerai, the same way my ancestors would have done 2,000 plus years ago. So CGAR at USM, again in your backyard. Please go, please attend the talks, please buy the book. The conservative dating is 250 years. I put it to probably about 2,300 years ago. It shows you that area in blue. This area has always been a hotbed of activity. So Lembah Bujang is well documented. Now we are even going north to Choras, which I'm sure you're familiar with. And that's what, 200, 300, 400, 500 AD. Srivijaya is 7th, 8th century. And then 12th century, you had these empires around here. 14th century was Majapahit. 15th century was our friend here, Malacca. And then Singapore, if you call it the Zaman Kegemilangan Malacca, and Singapore probably say they are, the equivalent now. So it's that this has been the lucky zone because it's halfway. And you have the monsoons connecting. There are other reasons, of course. I'm being simplistic. We can talk about it. So I wanted to start with this to say that just because I talked about the Straits of Malacca, now it's interesting. Malacca didn't exist. Who can tell me what the Straits was called before Parameswara came? Because the word Malacca is only Parameswara. So before that, we know the Chinese, the Persians, the Arabs, everybody was sailing up and down. What did they call it? What did Cheng Ho call it when he came? Okay, to be fair, he came in the Malaccan time, so maybe wrong example. But what did people call it? I don't know. It's not a trick question, but it was obviously called something. No, that's a peninsula. But what was the Straits called? That's the Straits called. So that'll be interesting. Next is that, remember, the Straits of Malacca only existed for 20,000 years. Before that, it was all land. It was the Sunda land. Then the ice melted in phases over thousands of years. Water level rose. Then you have the Straits. So it's a 18,000 phenomena, 18,000, 15,000 as the water level. But really the history based on archaeological and documentary evidence is 2,000 plus years. Let me move on. So this is in your backyard. Please, if you haven't gone, go to Lembah Bujang. Sorry? What was it called then? I don't know. That's why I asked you. It's not a trick question. It's not a trick question. So we have some documented evidence. I spent a little bit of history, but the maps come after this, right? So if you have time, now China, you don't need visa. You go to Hong Kong, you can take the high-speed rail to Guangzhou. You go to the Nanyu Kingdom, the Han tombs. And you look at that, that's turtle shell. Yeah, they will say the turtle came from Ryukyu. No, they came from here. They got tapir. The tapir, some people say came from Vietnam, came from here. So they were the Chinese from the Han, and there's a book, right, the history of the Han. They were sailing these waters for 2,000 plus years. And we know from Lembah Bujang, yes, that this is roughly true. We had before the age of steam, you had to travel by sail. So you needed wind. So we had the luck. And that was a climate, geographic good fortune, that the tides and the currents, 6 months, you could stop then and 6 months go back. That may change in the future with global warming. And this conduit then brought trade, religion, culture. You just have to go eat nasi kandar. You know where it came from, the language that they speak, etc. So the Straits was both a conduit and a destination. So people came here, they stayed, but people came here as a halfway point and went to China. So we can start with I Ching. There was an I Ching conference in KL. I don't know if you were there. I Ching was this monk who in the 7th century, Buddhism is 500 BC. 7th century is 1,200 years later. There was a lot of translation error and scribal error. So he wanted the original text in Nalanda. He spent 2 years in Srivijaya learning Sanskrit and then stopped off in Kedah and went to... So I Ching sailed through the Straits of Malacca. There are translations of his book. The Mongols in the 12-something, there was a failed invasion of Java. Ibn Battuta, I don't know if you heard this name, 1345. And of course, Cheng Ho, we all know a lot because we're Malaysian. So enough of this, now a history talk. We're here to look at some maps. 6 maps. 6 maps. We start. Beautiful 1530 Munster map. Maps, if you got a little bit of money, yes, maps are not cheap. The rare maps are expensive and the very rare maps are priceless. But you can save digital copies. I have many digital copies. So beautiful map, shows you the Straits of Malacca, ornate detail, not super, super expensive. And I like the beautiful elephant in there. I don't own this map. It's not super rare. It's a beautiful, simple map. And it shows you that Straits of Malacca in its glorious detail. Penang is not mentioned, but it's mentioned in other contemporary maps. Largely, I think it's not mentioned because there's no space to put it on there. It's a small 8x6 map. And for you to do the engraving and place name, it's a technological problem. Sorry. Yes, of course. You can see Selangor, Pahang, Terengganu, all that. By 1530s, can't remember something with M. I can get back to you. But those islands are real, right? Those islands are real. So we go to the next one. This is a very important map. This is, I would say, the cornerstone of any basic collection. It's not rare. There are copies available online. But it is rare. It's significant for 2 points of view. It's 1570 Ortelius. And that whole movement in Antwerp, starting with Mercator, Ortelius, and then the problems with the Spanish that they migrated to Holland and Amsterdam. Ortelius, his main innovation was he standardized maps into an atlas. So what he did was he said that, hey, I know lots of people. I'll be a compiler. You send me maps of your area. I will compile it, put the text at the back, standardize it, bind it. In 1570, it was the most expensive book. You would give it to kings, merchants, noblemen, and of course, the Portuguese had been in Malacca for 1511. They knew the area very well. And yet, there was so much of misinformation on this. I show you some of the misinformation. Japan is all screwed up. There's no Hokkaido, so you cannot go skiing. You got all these sea monsters. So there was a lot of drinking going on. More sea monsters. New Guinea was massive. I don't know if there are Australians in the audience, but this is a hint. 1570, yeah? Still, the white man still haven't been to Australia. So this is a hint of Australia. Look at the outsized Java and look at the southern coast. Absolutely no details. Look at Luzon. Look at, Philippines, we know Luzon. Legazpi only came to Philippines in 1565, and they moved to Manila in 71. So this information is not there. Sumatra artificially large, the Bay of Bengal artificially small, Malaysia ornate details. You can see Muar here, you can see the Kuantan River here. Yeah, it's a beautiful, magnificent map. So much. We can spend one day talking about it and the significance. I have a copy, but it's, Sorry, you want me to go back? It's the Ortelius, 1570. And you see maps have I digress a bit. What you're watching a 2D portrayal, but the Earth is a globe. The Earth is a sphere. And as I tell my 16-year-old daughter, there's no way you can cut up a sphere and portray it as 2D. If you don't believe me, go get an orange or apple and try and peel it. Right? You cannot portray it as 2D. There will be some distortions. So what they tried to do, starting with Mercator in 1569, is do different projections that minimize the distortions. So remember, this is not an accurate sailing chart. This is really like an encyclopedia. This was the most expensive book at its time and given to impress people to show that you knew of faraway lands. You cannot sail with this, you'd get lost. Now, a little bit touch on the Portuguese because these are European maps, but we know the Persians, the Arabs, the Indians all were sailing for 2,000 years. And there were different methods they used, but we don't have their charts. They were largely probably on organic material that long decomposed. what survived are the stuff that were in atlases and preserved in libraries. So I'll talk a bit about the Portuguese. I guess the Portuguese age of exploration started in 1453 when the Ottomans blocked off Constantinople and that overland route to Venice. And Prince Henry the Navigator encouraged them to sail down Africa. And eventually they sailed more and more and more and more. 1488, first time navigating the Cape of Good Hope. 1498, Vasco da Gama came to India. And when he asked, why did you come? He was very clear, spices and Christians. So for money and religion, which if you think through is the universal motive for everyone going to war, fighting each other and all that. So believe it or not, they came to Malacca in 1509, Sequeira. And the guy on Sequeira's, one guy on Sequeira's ship was Magellan, who later would achieve fame as the first man to circumnavigate the world, but actually he didn't because he got killed in Cebu. It was the return trip 2 years later that Alfonso de Albuquerque conquered Malacca. And he conquered Malacca in August 1511. By November, they were already in the Moluccas. They came for spices. They didn't come for Malacca. And they knew exactly where they were going. And they knew that from India. Because the Indians have been trading spices for donkeys years. They knew the routes, they knew the islands. So Portuguese charts, impossible to find. If you find, it's $1 million, and I'm not going to get called. I don't have $1 million US, but they're called the billionaires, they're called institutions. We talk a bit about the Dutch.
Why can't you get the Dutch?
Dutch are easier. Portuguese, sea charts decomposed because they were used at sea. There was a very high attrition rate because ships sunk. You on the ship, you had your whale lamp, the oil dropped. The what you call damage rate was high. They kept it secret. They didn't print a lot. Printing was also not very advanced then. So impossible to find. And this is everywhere. You can go to Lisbon, you can go to Madrid. This is everywhere. Very, very, very hard to find. We talk a little bit about the Dutch. And we're very fortunate to have one of the world experts on the Dutch presence in the southern part of the Straits of Malacca. So any questions to me, please direct to him. The Dutch kind of were minding their own business, and then events in Europe, largely the Spanish invaded. Is that the word? Different parts of different parts of Holland. Remember, the Spanish were Catholic and the Dutch were Protestant, and they blocked off their access to ports. So the Dutch, being the frugal, hardworking, maritime culture, also they decided to set off. And they, what they did was something revolutionary. In the old days, the Portuguese, Vasco da Gama did this. He came down here, he circumnavigated, but what he did was he stopped here. And he got the local guides. The Muslims and the Hindus there had been sailing these waters for donkey's years. And I talked about cultural exchange. They were Muslim. They were trading in pepper. So he got some of these guides, no doubt under coercion, to lead him to India. So this is what the Portuguese did. Now the Dutch didn't do this because it would be in direct conflict. They took this route here. This is called the Roaring Forties. So you hit the wind. Remember, it was sail, not steam. You ride the Roaring Forties and you have to turn left. You don't turn left, you hit Australia. That's why the Dutch, 1606, were in Australia. And this Mauritius is named after Prince Moritz of Nassau. He's Dutch. So the Dutch innovated this. And they didn't do the India Straits of Malacca, they did the Straits of Sunda to avoid. So this was a completely new route. And this was one of the revolutions. I talk a little bit, and this is this with the Ortelias, although this is probably 5-6 times the price of the Ortelias. It's not rare, but it's extremely significant. It's the Plancius Lien map. And this map, you can talk one day. I won't talk one day, but Lien was a Dutchman, and he worked for the Archbishop of Goa, Portuguese. Yes, the projection is inverted, but you think about it. If you're coming by ship, this is what you see, because your ship is coming from this way, right? And okay, since we're talking about the map, we'll talk about the map. So again, Java, nothing here. A huge Java, Sumatra mid-size, enormous amount of names, and all the, you can see some of the sandbanks. You have Penang here, Pulau something here. Borneo is all messed up. You now have Luzon. Japan's still suffering. No Korea mission. But this is 1598. But yet the Portuguese have been here since 1511. And this is a sea chart. Again, you've got your animals, you've got beach, Australia. Many things, even China alone, right? You can talk about China forever and ever, but this part of Southeast Asia and the general layout. So Lien was Dutch. Was Lien Dutch? Yeah, he worked for the Archbishop of Goa. And what he did these days will be called criminal breach of trust. He basically used to access all the secret information. When the sailors came back, go to the, you know, sailor, you're 6 months at sea, what do you do when you come back? Right? It's very simple. You buy the sailors some drink, give them some women, well, they're busy for 40 minutes, you take their map and you copy it. So nothing was really secret then. And he, in a sense, abused his job. Anyway, when he finished his job, he went back to Lisbon. And there had an agreement with publishers to publish it as a book and as a sailing instruction. The book, interestingly, was not that expensive when I started collecting 12 years ago. Now it's become very expensive. I regret not buying. So it's a 3-part book with the sailing instructions. He died young at 48, and it was, it was the definitive map of the region, incorporating the best Portuguese sources that were confidential. I talk about another confidential map. So the first Dutch trip out to Southeast Asia using this Sunda Straits was this were the two brothers. One of the brothers, the Hootman. So the Hootman heard about this, sent his accomplices to Lisbon to steal maps. And with that Lien map earlier was the one they stole. They set out. They came to Bantam. And it was an open port. Everyone could be there. You could do business with the Sultan there, buy spices, etc. But what he did was he pioneered that route I showed you, the Roaring Forties, and then turn left and Straits of Sunda. Otherwise, you hit Australia. So this is the first detailed map of the Straits of Malacca by the Europeans. It shows you the V funneling of the straits. Remember, it's not equidistant. It shows you the sandbanks. It shows you this Panaric kind of route. In the old days, the Straits of Singapore, Straits of Malacca were very dangerous because of the sandbanks. You hit the sandbank, you're dead. There's no way to get yourself out of it. There were pirates. The currents were deep. And sometimes all three hit you at one time. You hit a sandbank, the pirates suddenly miraculously appear. And in the old days to sail, when there's no wind, you can't sail. It took Raffles 9 days to go from Singapore to Penang. So this was the definitive map. And when the Hootman trip came back in 1598 to Holland, one of the people on his boat, a guy called Lodewijks, who kept a journal, naturally sold this journal, right? And there was a book published, and in that it had the notes from his book about into a map. But immediately as the book was being sold, the Dutch merchants decided to ban the book and strip out the map. So that map, we don't know where it is. But, you know, life being life, shortly thereafter, that same publisher produced this map here that we have. This is very rare. There are only 12 copies known institutionally. This is your children's education in the UK for 4 years. And if you have that money, you send your kids locally, you buy this map. Not easy to find. I've only been offered once in my life, and again, big mistake. But again, 4 or 5 years later, a German publisher, Debris, did a reduction of this map, and that's commonly available. You can buy it. There are 3 or 4 copies online. Equally beautiful, and that, with regret, is what I have. So now, we jump a little bit. We go to the English. We go to the English. So this is the first printed map by the English of the Straits of Malacca, 1703. Very rare. Shows you all the soundings, shows you the sandbanks. I mean, don't underestimate how dangerous the sandbanks were. Now, Penang, any property developer here? All the sandbanks are potential land reclamation, which is money from the sea. Sorry, I'm being mischievous. We show you the details, all the soundings, because the gig was to come down the Straits of Malacca, go to China, right? So these were the route the ships took. It's a beautiful map. I wish we can spend more time on it. I've only seen this once in my 12 years, and I bought the copy. Yeah? So we go back to the Dutch. The Dutch were typically Dutch in that sense. Any Dutch people here? Okay. The Dutch were very well organized. They were practical Protestant, and they were efficient. Unlike the British, where the ships were owned individually, and the East India Company, yes, it had its own military powers, could form government, could go to war, could do treaties, could loot. The Dutch could do all that, but they were incorporated as a company. They were listed. It had efficient allocation of capital. It had decentralization of power. So they had a Gentleman's 17, a board in Amsterdam. They also had a local council of Indies. Because remember, it took you about 9 months a year to go back. If I needed to make a decision, you had to put the decision on the ship and send there and had to come back. And if you didn't understand, you couldn't get clarification, right? So that decentralization of power extended also to chart making and map making. So they had what they call last mile maps of local ports, where the reefs were, where the corals were, where the dangers were. Now, they printed on vellum, not on paper. Vellum is skin of young cow. It lasts forever. It cannot be destroyed. From like 70, 80,000 that were printed, only a few hundred survive. They are impossible to find. When they find, they're 500,000, 1 million. And we always keep asking why the Dutch, because the English were in India before the Dutch. The English had come here. James Lancaster came here 1592. Why the Dutch, not the English, not the French? The French completely missed out on Southeast Asia. So we can talk a bit about that later, but this what if, why not, is a fascinating question. Some more maps, the Dutch. So the Dutch had this great secrecy, but at the same time not a solar. So the official hydrographers of the VOC, who had access to all the confidential information, also had private businesses, huge vested interests. Because I get the latest sea routes, I get the latest updates when the ships come back. I update my charts for the VOC, but my private charts also, people came to me because they were updated. And they were wealthy people. They were immensely wealthy. So they knew how to play the politics very well. And the VOC did something interesting. all the captain and the officers had to sign for the charts when they left the part of Holland, Texel. And when they came back, they had to sign again that this is what I'm returning, otherwise they're fined. Obviously, it didn't prohibit when you stop, for example, in Cape of Good Hope to take a break. Because remember, you couldn't sail for more than 3-4 months, 3-4 months, or else you got scurvy. And scurvy means you died. Scurvy is not vitamin C, you didn't eat fruits. Of course, the Indians and Arabs and Persians, we know all about this. But the Wamputte didn't know this then. And scurvy was a disaster. The attrition rate was astronomical. But coming back to chart, so the Dutch, they tried to keep it secret, but you couldn't. It's very easy to copy. And this is from what they call the Secret Atlas of 1753. It is the Van Kuylen, who was, what do you call it, hydrographer of the VOC, and Johannes Van Kuylen, the family, 3 generations, and Straits of Malacca, Tioman. So Tioman is very interesting. Tioman, they found 11th century ceramics, so Song Dynasty ceramics. So even before Cheng Ho, people were stopping there for fresh water. I bet you Tioman, there are more things. If you go look, there are probably more things there. And Durian, Sabon, these are islands, and Singapura, 1753. Again, glorious detail. And you should benchmark this with the English chart I showed you earlier. The soundings, the names. Now, interesting, the English copied Dutch charts. How? Then it's 1687 when William and Mary were kings of England. They were Dutch. Mary hated England. She surrounded herself in court by all her Dutch friends, and she'd be up and down. And in that up and down, no doubt they brought food. They also brought maps and charts. They were smuggled, but also they were given as gifts. They were valuable. So there was quite a free flow of information, despite the fact it was secret and confidential. This is a beautiful map. I seen, I think 3 times in 12 years. I bought my copy, but I sold it to one of the Malaysian oil and gas tycoons early part of the year. He was quite persistent, and I was very sad to see this go. But that's life. Now we talk about the English. I'm sorry. I'll try not to be as offensive as I can. So the English, we all, modern Penang, I guess, have to thank the English. They were quite late to the game, although they came, the East India Company was formed in 1600, 2 years before the VOC. VOC is only 1602. They were quite busy in India. India was quite big, a lot of money, a lot of territory. They didn't have to do other things. So, they got Bombay in 1662. And Bombay was headquarters for them. They gained ascendancy globally gradually over the 100 years. The first one was the French-Indian Wars, the last of the last of the Mohicans, as what happened in the US. But it was a global war. India, Spain, Philippines. Philippines actually fell to the British for a very short period. So the French-Indian Wars and the fact the British won it have some catalyst for Penang. So Penang is 1786, as you know. We'll talk about Penang later. Don't worry, I have some Penang here in case you're worrying about it. And those various events in Europe, 1795 to 1824, were really catalysts for what happened in this part of the world. Stamford Raffles, when Malacca got given back, 1795, during the French Revolutionary Wars, the Dutch ran away when France invaded Holland, and then Malacca was given to the British for safekeeping. And then the British kind of didn't want to give it back. But when they gave it back, Raffles got all, and went looking for Singapore. Actually, he went looking for Karimun. Farquhar and Ross, when they came from Penang, they were looking for Karimun. It was not Singapore. And Raffles was in Bencoolen. So, the importance of Straits of Malacca, Penang in the 18 whatever 05, I guess we have the expert in the room, was one of the 4 presidencies of India. I mean, stop and think, huh? Bombay, Calcutta, Madras, Penang. It's seriously with the heavyweights, huh? It didn't last long, but still, it showed you in their mind what they had, and you can't talk about the British presence in this part of the world without talking about tea and China. We'll talk a little bit about it now. This year is a very important year, 1824, the 200 year of the breaking up of the Johor Riau Lingga. So after Raffles took over, remember Raffles took over only a small strip of land. Yet he was happily giving away land to all his buddies and doing things that he shouldn't. He had no authority. He only had a small strip by the sea. And after the Napoleonic Wars, after the settlements in Europe and the Dutch were weakened, they, I guess, gave in to a lot of points. There was a treaty in Europe, and then later a treaty in Johor with the Temenggung and the Sultan, and that essentially broke up the Malay archipelago, I would say. The Johor Riau Lingga. Are my friends from Pahang here? There we have some people who drove all the way from Pahang. And Pahang also they are part of the Pahang Museum in the Pahang Empire. Pahang was part of the Johor Pahang Riau Lingga. Sorry, boss, I forgot to put Pahang in here. But it was a grand Malay empire that goes back to the Malacca Sultanate from the 14-something that was broken up by the Western people doing their. Remember, this is before the 1870s, before they carved up Africa, they carved up our part of the world already. So we were part of the Strait Settlement, which were the 3 countries, the 3 Malacca, Penang, Singapore, until 1867. And then they transferred it. So interestingly, there's a road here called Transfer Road in Penang to commemorate that. Singapore also, I don't think, has a transfer road. They transferred the administration from India to London. Okay, maps. The Dudley. If you have $1 million US, please buy this atlas. Seriously. It's very, very, very rare. It's magnificent. I go back a little bit to the story. 1646, Robert Dudley was an Englishman, an illegitimate son of the father who during the was one of the prominent people in society in the Elizabethan era. Being illegitimate, he couldn't inherit. He traveled the world. He did the first English sea chart atlas. It's the first on a Mercator projection, which is the most accurate that we know now to change a 3D globe sphere into a 2D. And there's a copy in London for $1.5 lah. But if you got $1 million, they probably sell you one. Southeast Asian institutions don't have this. I'm very, very fortunate to have this, I must say. This auction before COVID for about $1 million US lah. You can't find this anymore because, I mean, it's so significant. I won't even start. It took him 30, 40 years to do it. Exquisite details, exquisite amount of information. We can just go on and on. As a navigational tool, largely useless, unfortunately. Too heavy to carry at sea, too impractical. So Robert Dudley. Now we talk about the French. The French was the great what if, right? We went through all the major European powers here. Portuguese, English, Spanish. Spanish were in Tingla. The Spanish were also helping. They did assist with one attack on Malacca. And the French is the great what if. So this is a 1755 Berlin. Berlin was the hydrographer of the Dépôt de la Marine, which is the French Navy cartographic department. And this is the super rare version because it's got this lines. So this is a chart. This is a sea chart. This is what I would be the captain. We would be the officers, right? I'd be the captain, I'd be the officers. We'd all be wearing our elegant things and we'd be looking at the charts, plotting the direction. So these are navigational rumlines. They are mathematical lines. So you can sail. If you could keep a constant plot, you could sail. So finding charts with these rumlines are very rare. I think Peter, you have a copy, right? My friend Peter Boschberg from Singapore has a copy. I had a copy. I again sold it to a collector. I've seen only one other copy. These are very, very, so I mean, very significant. It's a beautiful chart. The reduced version of this without the rum lines, if you go to Singapore to the Fullerton Bay Hotel, you enter the lobby, you turn left, it's there framed on the wall. What else about Berlin? Yeah, I mean, the French are the great what if. So you see here the profiles. So when you sail down the sea, you essentially see nothing, right? You just see the horizon, and you kind of have to triangulate your position a little bit. And these, what do you call it? The views are what you see as you go. And this is interesting also. I think for the Johor, the Pahang, Riau, Johor, Lingga. This was what was broken up, I guess, in 1824. So there's a lot of Malay history here, including the Bugis. Now, that was 1755. This is 1775. This is by Manavillet. He was also the hydrographer to the Dépôt de la Marine. And the French and the British used to fight all the time, but he and the British Admiralty hydrographer Dalrymple were good friends. They wrote letters to each other. They, shared information and stuff. And again, this chart shows you the Johor, Pahang, Riau, Lingga Empire. And with those navigational lines. It's got Tioman here. Tioman was very important. Not a rare map, I must say, but very significant. I talk about two English maps. We are coming to Penang now, so bear with me. 1794, the Laurie and Whittle English pilot, which has Penang here, named Prince of Wales Island, because obviously 1786. And it shows you the Straits of Malacca in glorious, glorious detail. It's a must-have map. Not easy to get. I have two copies, and one I sold early this year again to a Malaysian collector. Magnificent. Remember, 1794 is before Raffles, 1819 Singapore, and all these views. This is an 1803 English sea chart by Heather. And 1803 to 1786, we are 17 years. This is way before Singapore. Singapore is 1819. And you have Penang here. So we know 1803, between 1786 and 1803, a lot of things were happening, right? I'll explain later when I come into the Penang section. We have Bass Harbor, which is Langkawi. We have the Straits of Malacca here. Look at all the soundings. Amazing detail. And look at Singapore here, this handicap view of Singapore. And the reason I say handicap is, I will go to the next slide. You see, this is the handicap view of Singapore, 1803. Because remember, Singapore was just a fiction. Although Singapore, we all know, from the 17th century, people had looked at different parts of the Straits of Malacca to base themselves. So, example, the Dutch Admiral Matterleef, when he wrote back to Holland to assess where the VOC should have their headquarters, he looked at Malacca, he looked at Johor, he looked at Batavia, he looked at different places. Malacca was a horrible place because there's no food. You had to import all your food. Johor had all his politics. Batavia was where they chose in 1619. That was where Batavia was founded as the head of the VOC in the East Indies. So Singapore, one of the Flemish traders, had wrote back to say that if you want to control the Straits of Malacca, you build your fort on Sentosa, because you control the Straits of Singapore. Anyone coming through, you can see them. You have your cannons. Singapore is not unknown. I'm being very simplistic and colloquial in the spirit of moving forward. There's a lot of this research online, and we're fortunate to have some experts here. So I'm going to flick through. Those of you who will trigger your migraine and all that, just be careful a bit. So you see Singapore, you have the handicap shape. Still handicap 1815, right? But the wording has changed. No, I jumped forward. Sorry. Close your eyes. So this one is now called Pulau Panjang because there's no name. Singapore is here, but 1803 is probably not very important to him. 1815, we have Singapore with a C. I'm going to go back for you to see. I'm going to go forward. Now, 1831, we have, hey, lo behold, this is Singapore. This is the correct shape for Singapore. So obviously 1819, 20, 21, they surveyed it, they went everywhere. It was their territory, right? In 1824, with the Anglo-Dutch Treaty, they controlled Singapore, the surrounding waters. And remember, by 1824, then, they controlled the Barbel, right? They controlled Penang, 7886, they controlled Singapore. So anybody wanting to come through the Straits of Malacca, you have to talk to me. You have to stop at my port. I have this 1831. It is very, very rare. So finally, Penang. Those of you who are here for this, sorry to take so long. Penang is not new, we don't have maps from Cheng Ho's trip, but we have 1620 copies. This is called the Mau Kun map, and that's in the Wu Pei Chi, and I'll show you later. That's the famous 1764 Walter Alves map. There are some other maps which I will talk as I show you. So this is a very rare view, 1788, 2 years after Penang. It's on sale from a dealer in New York, and nobody will buy this. So if you are interested, I can hook you up. He's asking for a fortune, but you can probably frustrate him. It's magnificent. I think, Marcus, you haven't seen this, right, when I asked you? Yeah. To what I know, the experts that I've asked, no one is. You cannot say, you can never say never, because someone will find something somewhere hiding. But this is very rare. And if you have eyesight like a hawk, this ship, they have a name so they can date it back to that time. And apparently the fort, wherever the fort is still the wooden palisades. It's not, what do you call it? Stone. Yeah. So it's not a map, but I got excited. So this is the Wu Pei Chi. Those of you who can read character, you can help me out and tell me where Penang is. But obviously, the same way I'm standing at the ENO hotel, the same way my Firefly when I come, the same way I'm on the Gunung Jerai side, I can see the island. 100% sure everyone sailing up and down the straits could see this island. Whether they wanted to come or not, it's a separate story. So obviously Cheng Ho didn't stop here. There was probably no reason to stop here. Why? I stopped in Kedah, or I did stop in Srivijaya. And then next, my ships are massive. I have tens of thousands of people on my following. We stop here and do what? There's nothing. So it was shown because it was an island, it was a landmark. I think there may have been fishermen, whoever, but it was nothing exciting. This is the exciting one. This is the famous one, 1764, Walter Alves, printed by Dalrymple. Dalrymple is an interesting guy because he and James Cook were fighting to go look at the transit of, I think it's Venus in Tahiti. In fact, it was a secret mission to go to map out Australia. And he lost out to James Cook because the Admiralty wanted a naval officer and Dalrymple was a cartographer. So he then, to drown his sorrows, decided to go chart everything, map everything. So we have one of the first maps, 1763, printed 1774 of Penang. And here with the arrow, it says a small town. We can spend the whole day with alcoholic beverages if you want to lubricate the conversation, trying to interpret what that meant, right? I suspect there were a fishing village. At night, there had maybe been fire and light. He may have stopped. It was nothing exciting, but look at the soundings, huh? So they went around. They did the depth soundings. So it was obviously interesting, but not super interesting. No, there's no Jamestown yet because this is 764. James of all is 1780 something. But that location is interesting. That location was where Jamestown is proposed. Yes. And this location, it gives you easy access north, give you easy access south. It's a hiding place from the Straits. If you want to run to the mainland, you can. You want to get food supply from the mainland, you can. So again, I say we can talk forever on this. So this is the blow up. We all know there were people here before Francis Light came. There was a Malay community in Batu Uban. There was a fairly sophisticated Malay community in Batu Uban. They built mosques. They had burial grounds. It was not a bunch of fishermen. I think that's a very naive interpretation. I don't know. I leave it to yourself. I don't want to be too political. But I think a lot more effort needs to be put into highlighting this fact that it was not the white men who came here. It's not the colonial people who came here and discovered Penang. People were here before. It says some watering place. Yeah, they probably some fresh water. Yeah. So this map I've never seen, by the way. If anyone know, I want to buy. Question or stretching your hand? Okay, yeah, please.
So this map is the money village map. Actually came from a book, which I read last year, and it actually gives a description of the southern coast of Penang, and it says that in 1745, the Straits was busy with native crafts. So the Straits of Penang was a busy waterway, so it's not surprising there's a town there. So it's actually linked to that. And Walter Elf's, all his ship logs were actually republished by Dalrymple. They were contemporaries. And the ship was the Esther, is a brig. So it's linked actually. The different accounts. So I think Dalrymple plagiarized what his friend manipulated.
But to be fair, they shared, right? Manavilet paid tribute to Dalrymple.
But my point is, it actually collaborates why there's a town there, because Manavilet's instructions to China, that's what his book was called, said that it was a busy waterway, the Straits of Penang. Yeah.
No, thank you. Thank you very much.
Oh, can you see the island in the south that says water?
Where here?
The previous map.
Oh, sorry.
The previous map, there's an island just to the south, and it also says. So which island is that?
I don't know, but there would have been fresh water. Yeah, he probably didn't do it properly. Yeah. But
it's a lot of little islands.
Remember, 1592, James Lancaster was the first Englishman, not Francis Light. He spent 2 months here. It was obviously a safe haven. There were no pirates. There was ample fresh food, fresh water. Sorry? But very interesting, just to digress. I'm very fortunate Nelson Mandela is an honorary fellow of my same college, and I've met him not once but twice. And one of the things, an amazing inspirational speaker, and Mandela said something very interesting. To the white man, I'm a terrorist. To a black man, I'm a freedom fighter. So I think perspective matters. The same thing, and it's not black and white. Huh? Don't get me. You look at the Dutch and the Dutch and the Portuguese, the Catholic and the Protestant. The Dutch massacred all of them in Ambon, right? They didn't care. I think this perspective does matter, right? How you look at things. And the same thing with the Spanish Armada. Remember the Walter Raleigh? Is he a hero or a terrorist? And remember, the Queen encouraged this. It was officially sanctioned looting from Cartagena, Cuba, etc. But this is another conversation. Sorry to digress. So this is one of the Holy Grail. Thank you to Marcus Langdon for sending to me. This is pre-Francis Light, right? 1786, 1770 something? Yes. Sorry, 17 what? 1786. Yeah. So sorry. Let me. So this is just before Francis Light. But what's shocking to me, and that's why I do these talks, by the way, because I learn new things. I know my core things very well, but Penang, as you can see. So look at the shape of Penang. Oh my God. It's so accurate. Look at the soundings. Look at Batu Kawan and look at all these inlets and stuff. And if you can read this, I apologize again. This was given by Scott to a guy called Cummings, who gave it to Dalrymple, who published it. So Scott, obviously, either he knew someone who did the accurate survey, and I'll tell you why it's accurate, right, in the next slide. So obviously, way before 1786, we know that Francis Light approached the Sultan Kedah in 1771. But between that 1771 and 1886, they would have done surveys to know the shape of it accurately. And then why would you do that? Remember, at night, you don't sail because no wind. Dangerous, pirates. During the daytime, you have nothing to do. People didn't live a long life. Huh? They have all their problems and stuff. So why would you survey it? So I suspect, I don't know, I haven't really spoken to the experts, but I suspect there are a lot of Machiavellian plotting going on here, right? Particularly by Scott. So you see this map, oh my God, this is modern Penang. You see all you see the sandbank here, the land reclamation, you see Jaja, you see the soundings, you see this shape where ENO have all their development reclamation. Oh my God, Mamma Mia. I was shocked, I was blown out when I saw this. I'd never seen this. It's in Spain, it's in the Biblioteca Hispana, who by the way is the friendliest library. If you're in Spain and you have nothing to do, go to the library, they are sweethearts, easy, it's one of the best. So let me show you, again, these are 3 charts here. So this is 1790 Elijah Trappout's book as an inset. This chart is exactly identical to the previous chart. So he copied Dalrymple's chart. This is 1790, that was 1786. This is 1794, Laurie and Whittle on a map. I will show you the map later. This is identical to this. So not much changed between 90 and 94, at least in the public domain. But this one is 1798. Look at the exquisite detail. So these guys were not hanging around, goofing around. They were doing work. They were charting, detail. Look at the butt flag. So all the shallow land is where the developers want to retain. So here, your Gurney Drive, all, I'm very sorry lah. It used to be nice, now it's probably less. And all this sandbank, all this, look at the shape, the contour, all.
Look at all the seagrasses.
Yeah, Middle Bank is prime target for developers. Sorry, if you haven't figured out, I'm not big supporter of developer lah. Sorry, question, yeah?
Yeah, I couldn't keep the question anyway. I was about to move to the end. So the thing is, I've been looking at all the maps that you showed us, right? And this is based on my own personal experience because last year I had the opportunity to go on an expedition up Mount Jirai with Professor Mukhtar and his team of geologists, and we were looking at 550 million year old rock formations. And he was telling me a really interesting fact where you can see the timeline of the Earth, and right where we were halfway up Mount Jirai, there were marine sediments. And you can see it at every 100 or 200 points in history. And this goes back millions of years, right? What do you think is possible? What we see as inaccuracies are just the changing landscape over hundreds of years? Because I've been looking very closely at where Mount Jirai is, and Mount Jirai is like the lighthouse for every sailor. Every map, there are inches of differences where Mount Jirai is. Sometimes it's submerged underwater, sometimes it's not. Do you think it's very possible that what we deem as inaccuracies are actually accurate, but an actual reflection of the water levels up from today and maybe 12,000, 13,000 years ago?
Thank you for the question. As I said earlier, 20,000 years ago, it was all land, right? There were no straits because it was the ice age. And the water temperatures rose. There was the first melting, second melting, and then the Straits of Malacca formed. So Penang didn't exist 20,000 years. It was likely under. We know from Lembah Bujang, by virtue of siltation, changes in the coastline, actually, there was a lot of migration from Lembah Bujang to Sungai Batu to Sungai Muda. I don't know the sequence, but you can easily Google and find out. So yes, shorelines change. Maps are not perfect anyway. It's not now you GPS everything. Everything is, satellite go up, bounce back, 100% perfect. These are approximations. There are limitations if you are based on a boat. Think about the rain, the monsoon, the wind, all of that. And you have to do by triangulation. So very primitive methods, huh? But let's get real. Even a few years after 1945, on the British planes, there was no radar. There was no radar. They were using paper map. Yeah. So these are at best approximations. They also coupled with human ingenuity. They had local guides. They had people like in the Straits of Malacca, Johor, they had this orang selat, orang laut, who were literally born on the boat. They know, they can smell the water and they know the tide. They can look at the clouds. We all, in a sense, sometimes laugh about this, but they have centuries of wisdom. Sorry, question?
Yeah, I think that's the reason why we don't have any maps from Cheng He's journey, because...
No, but Cheng Ho, as you know, once he passed away, his patron, right? What's the emperor name? I forget all the names. Yeah, Yongle. Yongle is a Chinese name. That's an English thing. But once he died, the son was not interested. And then all the mandarins, all the mandarins were unhappy. Because remember, they were cutting the forest and all to build vessels. And remember, he was a Muslim, he was a Yunnan, and he was a eunuch. Triple minority. So
my point is because according to his translator, Ma Huang,
they
were relying on pilots.
Yes, absolutely.
So especially those who were Austronesian, Polynesian, right? And it was funny when you showed me the Chinese map. I ran it through Google Translate, and it described some of the islands as chair-toothed dragon. And it goes into how we Malays have the Hikayat Merumah Wangsa. And I actually talked to various those who are Persian descent, and they told me that hikayats were, you see, because Aramaic, and language within, they have numerical value. What we perceive as song, the beats in every word, also translate to the beats in nautical miles.
So they sing. They sang.
Yeah. Could it be that these pilots, they didn't have maps, but they had their own forms of hikayats?
Yes, of course. So you mentioned the Polynesians, the Austronesians, the Polynesians, the original batch who came to populate New Zealand. They didn't use maps. They had their own navigational tools. There are many, many methodologies. I collect maps. So this is whatever 17th, 18th, 19th century. People have been traveling the world for a long, long time. They navigated, right? So anyway, come back to these because I'm very excited with these. So this map, sorry, I'm jumping too far ahead. So this map on your left here is this map. And those of you with eyesight can see Teluk Bahang, Batu Fringhi, Tanjung Tikus, Pulau Air Raja, Scotland. And this is 1798, 12 years after. And look at the glorious detail. It talks about Georgetown with 5,000 souls, 4,000 residents. Now, interestingly, I let you all digest.
You know, there's a Pulau Kio, and it's also the previous map. What is Pulau Kio?
See, this is one of the problems about giving a local presentation. There inevitably will be locals who know much more about the subject than you. I enjoy it. I don't take personal. So please knock yourself out. Please share with me.
May I share? Actually, I wrote an article about this, and I'm preparing a research paper on this. So the origin of those names is before that, because I'm researching this person called Thomas Forrest, Captain Thomas Forrest. So it's related to James Scott's map, because he actually in 1784, in early 1784, Warren Hastings sent him as an emissary to the Sultan of Riau. After he done that, he doubled back to Phuket, which is Ujung Salang or Jang Salon, and he met Scott and Light. So after that, in August 1784, he actually surveyed Penang, and I found the map. It was supposed to be an appendices, but it was lost. I found the original colored one in his own handwriting in the India archives. And I shared it with Marcus and Gibby. So it's a very interesting one. He had a colored sketch of Jerajat, 1784. So, and it looks like the previous one. Is actually the map is inverted. It looks like he's coming from the north, which right after he met Scott. And Scott's map actually looks like Forrest's map. And later in 1794, he published his book, which is all his explorations into Mergui and other places. It is exactly that list with the exact spelling. So Popham got it from him. Popham came in 1791. And the previous map you showed of Malacca, that very big one, if you look at the words there, it says updated with Captain Popham's description. So they are all linked, which makes it very interesting. So that's the origin.
Later, but thank you. No, thank you. You're doing my work for me. The good news, those of you with some money can buy this map. Let me show you how underappreciated Penang maps are to some extent. This is available. There are 3 copies available online. Nobody wants to buy it. It's really, I find it very sad. I have my copy. And here I need to pay tribute. I think one of my good friends, Andrew Barber, passed away in July, and Andrew wrote some books. And this was the copy I own, I bought from Andrew 2011, and that was the genesis of my collecting. So my map is very significant, and I'm still upset Andrew has passed away. So anyway, you can buy this map. It's not, I mean, I don't know, it's all relative, right? But for about 1,200 US, you can buy this. Yeah. No, but sorry, you cannot see what? Okay, so you see again, it's the northern part of the Straits of Malacca. You would come from India, you would come from Ujung Salang, Phuket, you would come from Calcutta, you would come from Thailand, the other side Thailand, and then you'd follow these navigational lines, right? If you follow this line, you see you came straight to Perak. Malacca. And it's got all the sandbanks. It's got Penang. This is 1798. I have this copy. This is Andrew's copy. This is from 1786. And this is obtainable. You can buy this. There are 3 copies online. Yeah. And it thanks Popham here. Right? So this is the Popham map. This brown hand is mine. So Popham was an English captain, and he surveyed, I'm being very, very simple here. He surveyed the South Channel, which is here. And the map that was produced was in a book, a pamphlet. There's a 1798 and a 1804. I've seen both at Cambridge. And I've never been able, I would love to buy this. I haven't seen it. I have this map, of course, and for the bicentennial of the Singapore, the Raffles establishment of Singapore, one of the Singapore institutions borrowed my map. So it's a very, very important map. I've seen 2 copies in 13 years. I bought both. This is 1,002 US. This is probably 5-6 times the price because it's very rare. And the Holy Grail in this is this little baby here. So if your eyesight's bad like mine, go to your Google and type in this fella here, plan of Fort Cornwallis. So even better, buy Marcus Langdon's book. It's in there somewhere. And if you don't know which one, just buy all 3. And I tell you, you look at the detail of this. Mamma mia. I'm getting too excited here. Paddy fields, moss, the fort, mud bank, mostly dry at low water, Malay town. So obviously I don't know I'm the first to confess, I don't know the entire history. We have many, many, many historians in the audience here who you can probably engage with, who can tell you the whole 9 years. So this is replicated many places. I'm sure some of you have seen this. And unfortunately, this comes with that previous map, which is rare and expensive. But I think you can buy reproductions online. I can send you digital copy. Glorious. Depth sounding. Soundings, the depth. Because the ships would have been, right? No, reclaiming. So some of you may be upset, like I'm neutral, right? Although I support the NGO, I support the Consumer Association, all that. So reclaiming is not my cup of tea lah. But they've been reclaiming land in Singapore and Penang forever. It's normal. You are an island, and it's cheap manufacturing of land. And again, just to elaborate, land in Malacca is $20 per square foot. Land in Penang is 400 ringgit per square foot. So land is money. Again, I'm digressing. So this is it's a 5 foot by 4 feet map of Penang. It's massive. Remember, I'm 5'8". This is my height. It's 1855 Moniot. For those of you who have climbed Penang Hill, there's a Moniot Road. Moniot was Surveyor General here. He got promoted to go to Singapore, big job. So the drain of foreign talent has been happening for some time. And every single, you can't see here, every single land allotment is marked. Every single plot is marked. So I had all 3. Unfortunately, I don't have this anymore. It's beautiful, huge, and it show you the cartouche, including the survey of the soundings of the South Channel. So Popham did it 1791, 1855. They're still talking about it because if you come to Georgetown, you either go up or go north. You have to go through the South Channel, and then he pays homage to Batuat. Batuat, as you know, Batuat on the Seberang side, and he was governor of the Straits settlement. So a bit more recent map, a bit more affordable. Sorry, I'm too excited. A bit more recent, 1950s. So some of you may be old enough. Some of you may have heard the stories from your parents, and you can see this is obtainable. You can every once in a while, once a year, find it. I have many copies I can sell to you. So you can see the ENO, all gone, hasta la vista. You can see Middle Bank. I'm 56. I think in my lifetime gone. You see I was talking to the Penang Port people. I invited them for this event. I don't know any are here, but Penang Port has really extended here, extended all the way here. And then Pride, the details in Pride. So I'll go to the next chart and show you. We show you again, 1950s, the details. Huh? And these are British Admiralty sea charts. This is a blow up again of the other side, Butterworth. All the train line, the factories, the Straits trading, the smelter. I'm sorry you can't see. It's like I said, it's not perfect, right? I cannot be. If I blow up every map, we'll have 80 slides here, and they limited me to 30 megabytes. So if you're interested and haven't fallen asleep yet, and you want to buy books, Suarez's book, the book on the left, is for anything before 1570. 3/4 of this book is it. Increasingly hard to find, now 100, 150 US. So if you find, you better buy it. David Perry, who sold his collection to the Singapore Library, impossible to find. If you find, please buy. And he looks at things from a different point of view. This map, remember, I highlighted earlier? And this is also the map I highlighted earlier. And then our homegrown Tuanku Sultan Selangor and his friend, Dato' Richard Curtis, really a labor of love. Painstakingly exquisite collection, although all modesty aside, they have some maps I don't have. I have some maps they don't have. The book is a must-have, and increasingly very hard to find this book. 100 US, and shipping will cost you another 50 US because it weighs a ton. But beautiful maps of Malaya, maps of Borneo, very well done. Every once in a while, when I'm bored, nothing to do, I think I want to do a book. Then I look at this and I say, no way. So thank you for listening to me.
Did you just skip 100 years from 1855, then you jumped to 1955? Sorry. It's so good.
Obviously, many things happen in the history of the Straits, Singapore, Penang. I just don't have maps of that era of Penang. And to be fair, I have early and I have latter. I don't have in between. They don't come up that often. And actually, they haven't come up in many years. I do buy. The rarer, the better. The more expensive, the better. So largely because I don't own. So it's a very idiosyncratic presentation to my collection. I'm not a historian. I try to interweave a little bit the history. As I have the map, I understand the significance, and I have the pleasure of having many of your friendship to help me through this. There are maps obviously. And if you have time, the archives in Malaysia, the archives in Singapore, the archives all around the world, a lot of things are digital. You can go type in keyword Penang, Prince of Wales Island. A lot of things come up. In fact, you'll be inundated. So I'm going to London next month. I'm fortunate to have a friend who's now the curator of maps at the Royal Geographic Society. So she gave me the link. So I went to the catalog. What I thought would be 1 hour became 3 hours. And I shortlisted 60 maps. Then I realized that I cannot see 60 maps. So I shortlisted 30, I shortlisted 15, I shortlisted 5. So then I realized I'll be at the RGS for the rest of my life. Because those 5 maps are going to catalyze other directional, other research, right? Hey, why was this done? Why was that not done? Why they included this? Why not that? So it's endless. I think all the historians know here, it's endless. You can be I don't intend to spend, maybe I write a book lah. But I joke I think most of you know I worked with Lim Guan Eng before for 1 year in Penang. And I joke with Guan Eng that when he writes a book, I will write a book. If you notice, Guan Eng has not written a book. Anyway, on that note, thank you for coming. I'm sure you have better things to do on a Thursday.
Thank you.
Sorry, before that, sorry, questions.
Yeah,
Sorry.
thank you.
Questions.
Thank you so much, Julian. I know it's 9:25 now. We literally have 5 minutes, but I can extend to another 5 minutes. So 2 questions. Last 2 questions. Those who are interested in asking more, we'll bring you the microphone, because if you don't speak over the mic, those people online can't hear you. And if you are online still, you can ask your question. We'll help you with it. So anybody? Ka-chung, ka-chung, ka-chung. No question? Wow, Julian.
No, like I said,
Wow.
it's the start. It's not the end. We have many modes of communication. Instagram. I post my maps on Instagram every other day or so. Instagram is connected to Facebook, so it's linked. So we can stay in touch. And happy to chat. Right? It's very harmless.
Right. If that's all from the crowd, you sure you don't have a question? No? Right. You did that. I'm not going to pass you the mic. Next. All right. If that's the case, thank you, everyone. Thanks a lot. Have a good evening, and please drive home safe. Thank you.
So many maps. Hello, we'll be here whole day. So many. It's not just funny.